Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan and welcome to the latest episode of Entertainment Show. As you know, it's part 3 of our entertainment show now, and as we always do in part 3, we premiere a new TV series or movie that's debuting in Ireland for this coming month. And up for discussion this week is a sort of comedy, sort of sci-fi series with a twist in terms of a vampire sort of flick that's not gory but sort of humorous in terms of its nature. It's called Reginald the Vampire. It's debuting here in Ireland on January the 10th on Channel Sky Sci-Fi at 9 p.m. And I'm delighted to be joined by one of the cast, the stars of the show. Her name is Savannah Basley. She plays the character Angela, and she's the antagonist in terms of the series as well. She plays the sort of, dare I say, the mean, sort of cool girl, sort of vampire that sort of looks down with this overweight, sort of chubby, sort of vampire, sort of wannabe that doesn't fit into the, let's say, the cool gang, as the saying goes. He's not a cheerleader or a jock in terms of his description. Other cast members obviously star Jacob Batalon, stars at Reginald the Baskin. He used to play the primary character of Reginald the Vampire. We also have Emily Haine, who plays his love interest, Sarah Kinney. Georgia Waters plays an evil vampire, Penelope. Marqueen Hannah plays Ashley. And Mandela Van Peebles plays Maurice Miller. But I'm delighted, Savannah, to have you on our show this evening. And tell me, Reginald the Vampire was an awful lot of fun shooting, as what it seems to be in terms of the trailers that we're seeing at the moment.
Yes, Reginald was a lot of fun to film. It was a lot of fun to film. Great cast and a really great crew. So it was a lot of fun every time we got to come into work.
And tell me, Angela, how did the opportunity come about for you to get cast in Reginald the Vampire? Was it the original audition sort of process? Was it a long sort of process? Had they something in mind when they were looking for the antagonist, the sort of bad girl? Because it sort of struck me that you were looking for a Cruel Intentions type, Sarah Michelle Gellar type wannabe in terms of that sort of raw sort of meanness.
Yeah, that's funny. I haven't heard that one yet, but yeah, Angela came to me in the regular kind of auditions. My agent sent it to me, and I read for it on self-tape because it was during COVID. So I read on self-tape, and then I got a call back, and I read on Zoom with everyone. Harley and Jeremiah was there, and there's a few others that were on the call somewhere hidden behind on the Zoom call. And yeah, and then I actually found out I got the part on my birthday, so that was really fun.
You got the part on your birthday, and obviously you mentioned their audition process during COVID, and you obviously, did you do any of the sort of shooting the original episodes during COVID, and was that a sort of particular time? I remember Georgia was telling me you were out in Victoria Island. Is that correct?
Yes, we were out on Victoria. Yeah, we were out in Victoria. It wasn't during like the lockdowns of COVID, but there was still like a lot of the heavy procedures for COVID when the show was in production and all of that stuff. But yeah, I was in Victoria. It was really beautiful place to be, and it was a lot of fun to get to. I love vampires so much. They're like, vampires is my thing. I remember like when Twilight came out, everyone would be like, oh, you're into this, and my friends would be like, no, she's liked vampires before they were cool. They'd always like come to my defense to be like, no, she likes all vampires, which I do. And so I was just very excited. I got to play a vampire on an episode of Two Sentence Horror Stories, which is another sci-fi series. And that was a lot of fun. So when I got the opportunity to play an entire like series playing a vampire, that was a lot of fun for me. I just was thinking in my head, Aaliyah, Queen of the Damned. That's like what I had in my head. That's kind of like the energy that I kind of wanted to bring to her. This old timey kind of like power that I'm a god type of thing that comes with being a vampire. I wanted a little bit of that in there.
So from what I'm gathering, Savannah Basley as a 10-year-old girl going around trick-or-treat, never dressed up as a witch. She always had the fangs out every Halloween Eve.
Well, it's funny. It went between I was either a vampire or a witch. One or the other. I was either a vampire or a witch. I think my mom got me into a ballerina outfit once and a circus outfit one time, but I think I begged to be dead in that one. So it was like, she was like, fine, no Disney princesses for this one.
And Savannah, were you obviously growing up in, you're an actor, you're obviously Canadian, working in Toronto as well. Obviously Vancouver, the home of sci-fi, Canada, sort of renowned in sci-fi. And speaking of you, you've a sort of a sci-fi sort of background as well in terms of projects that you've been on as well. So in terms of sci-fi, do you feel you're at home in that sort of make-believe sort of worlds, that sort of fictional sort of universe? Does it take you away from the modern day's life in terms of drama or monologues, in terms of Shakespearean sort of English is more the unreal, the sort of graveyard sort of scene? Is that more you, dare I say?
I love it all, but there's just something about horror that I absolutely love. Even like comedic horror. There's just, I feel like there's so many things that you can touch on in horror that for example, there's things like Hereditary and all these other great movies where they hit on these, there's so many things that you talk about, but everyone, you kind of don't let your mind think about it that deeply, but there is elements of drama, and there's all of these other genres hidden within horror that I feel like you can get away with, because people are like, oh, but it's a scary movie. But it kind of sits there in the back, and you think about it a little bit more, and the stories, they have each story kind of has a life of their own in horror, and that's what I really like about it. You can focus on drama, but there's a horror element of it, so people don't really think, oh, I'm not sitting there watching a drama where I feel like I need to cry. But you could be in the middle of the horror movie and it makes you cry, and then there's a jump scare, and then you're laughing, and it's a big, I love it. I love horror so much. And so especially in sci-fi, I like being able to, there's just so many fun, silly things and stories though that you get to touch on. But I feel like because it's hidden behind this lighter veil of the sci-fi, you can just, there's so many things that you can tap in sci-fi and in horror. And I love that element of it.
And Savannah, what was wardrobe like for you? Because I've seen some of the trailers there, and you seem to be all sort of kitted out. I think I saw blonde locks at one sort of stage running through your hair as well. In terms of that, and I'm looking at you now, a full head of black hair on you. So I imagine the hairdressers were sort of very busy on set as well.
Yes. The hair, funny thing about that is it was just in a protective style that I had, because I've got very naturally curly hair. So I just had it in a locks just while I was not filming. And I happened to do my self-tape with that style in. And so when I went, I was like, okay, what did you guys want me to do with my hair? Because I usually get my hair done before I go places. I get my hair girl to kind of set the style of what it is that I want, and then they just kind of replicate it and upkeep it wherever I am. That's a whole other thing for another interview. Being a POC actor, having people in the business who can really do your hair and do these styles, that's a whole other conversation. So
that's out of my comfort zone anyway, so I won't pitch you about it.
There's a lot that goes into there. So we had some wonderful hair people on set that did these wonderful styles with the hair, but the actual braids and the locks and things are done by some other women who do my hair normally. But yeah, so the wardrobe and stuff though was so much fun. I love wardrobe, costume. That's what gets me into character. So being able to have this collaboration with my hair and my makeup and my costume team is really important. And I wanted to bring pieces. I wanted it to look like she had gathered items from each century or generation that she's been alive. She's been alive for 400 years. So I wanted to bring that age with her where she's like, I kind of like the frills, or I like the high collar sometimes that, she remembers wearing back in the day. That's kind of the element that I wanted to bring with her, where she's kind of collected these pieces that she likes, because Angela's still a woman. She's a vampire, but she's still a woman. And so, she's collected these items and they kind of go with her through life. So I wanted pieces that looked very old and kind of, there was different elements while we were in the fittings where we kind of be like, ooh, this kind of reminds me of like Victorian, or we kind of did like some stuff with the sides of my dresses to kind of give them this peplum look that I'm not very good with using terms. In my mind, I can picture them, but they were just like old looking in my head. I was like, oh, I can place this in a time. I don't know what time I'm thinking of, but I can remember that this is like a style from back in the day. So we try and add those pieces to Angela's outfits. And a lot of corsets. I wanted her to have this like panther cat-like grace to her. And a lot of Angela's furniture sits very low and it's very deep. So in order to get up from them, you really had to like launch yourself up. So in order to keep myself from having to do that, I was like, can we get me in corsets? So in a lot of the times, the corsets is what kept me just pinned straight up. And it allowed me to have this. I had to move my body in a different way in order to get myself up from seats, which I felt like was very animalistic and took a lot of squats, basically, just a lot of leg muscle to try to lift myself up without having to launch forward is basically what I was trying to get at.
So you were getting a full workout on set every day, I know it.
I was, especially the woman having to do the corsets, because depending on the scene and depending on what time of the day, if it was after lunch, I'd be like, don't worry about it, keep her a little loose. But if it was before lunch, I'd be like, crank her up. I need this feeling of being stuffed in like a sausage, so it can help with the rest of everything else going on.
And I suppose, Savannah, in terms of society, we all know there's classes. I actually think there's not many classes in society, but society is stereotypical. There's so many. But putting classes on the undead is sort of a force, really, in terms of people being dead in terms of class of society. It's almost like grading zombies in terms of, oh, you're upper class zombie, you're a middle class zombie, but this Reginald the Vampire, that's what it's saying to the actor that plays Jacob Batalon, Reginald Baskin, that you don't have the look that we're looking for in terms of being a vampire. You're overweight, you're fat, you're not model-less sort of look like that. It's a unique sort of different sort of take to it in terms of the normaling the vampire just feeds for blood in terms of this sort of society. It's almost like a secret sort of society. It's like, oh, you have to pass the initiation first before we let you in.
It's elitism. I mean, the thing with vampirism, the whole idea of vampires, I think it's always been a metaphor for elitism. They are this other group that do these things that no one knows about because no one's a part of the group. The same thing with, people who think the rich are off doing something crazy that no one else knows because only people with billions of dollars can see it. It's the same thing with vampires. It's not, it's, what does my dad say? He's a Mason. He goes, it's not a secret if you're in it. Mm. So that's, I feel like that's kind of a thing about vampirism is there is this elitism to them. There has always been this feeling of being better and other. I am a predator, an apex predator, even the biggest predator on our planet. I am the apex right now type of feeling. I think that's kind of the energy that a vampire goes about. And so especially in Reginald the Vampire, which is based on the books Fat Vampire by Johnny B. Truant, there is this, it's just a metaphor for society of people who think that they are the gatekeepers. They are the gatekeepers of what's fashionable. They are the gatekeepers of what's in and what's skinny and what's not. I mean, even now, what is that there's a whole thing going on in the media about is heroin chic back? It's always, there's always people who are going to tell you you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough. That's just how life goes, kind of. So in Reginald, I feel like we're kind of just trying to amplify that and put it in this world of vampires, but it can really be anything. I mean, growing up, there was times where I wasn't allowed to be a part of groups because I wasn't skinny enough or I looked different. So I feel like with Reginald, we're trying just to hint on that and kind of play with the idea of what would happen if regular mean girls were also vampires. And that's kind of, I think, a little bit of a little taste of what you get with Reginald. But I think it's a very fun and creative take on the vampire world. And it's silly and it's goofy, and Em Haine, absolutely love Em Haine. She plays Sarah, and she really brings this this lightness to the show. There's a lot of actors that bring a lot of lightness to the show that I think everyone will really enjoy. So although it is kind of set on this heavy topic, sorry, that was pun not intended. Even though it's set around this kind of, you know, mean subject matter, if you will, I think the way that the story flows and the way that Harley and Jeremiah and everyone wrote it is it's really about becoming the like underdogs, finding their power. You're not really an underdog, and even though everyone might say this stuff about you, you're still a great person. And Reginald, even though everyone is telling him all of these things throughout the entire season, he's still on a quest just to be a good person. Even though he's a vampire, he still just wants to be a good man, even though he's a vampire. And so I think that that's a really nice story, is just finding someone who has had this crazy thing happen to them, and now he's trying to figure out, like, how do I work all of this, but also how do I stay true to the person that I have always been, and how do I continue to be a good person and just grow from that. And I think by the end of the season, Reginald has grown a lot, and it's really nice to see him come into his own.
And Savannah, I know it's a busy time for you. You have another series as well in production, another sci-fi series. You might enlighten us in terms of that. What is you sort of finished wrapping a shoot you led to believe before we came on air?
Yes, I recently just finished season 2 of Surreal Estate. So if anybody's a fan of that show, we were canceled, but all of our fans and everybody really helped to bring it back. So we just got done season 2 of Surreal Estate, and that is I'm looking forward to everybody seeing that. So if you're a fan of that show, then you're in for a real treat. We've got some fun stuff in store.
Okay, and Savannah Basley, now for the final 30 seconds, I might turn it over to you, and you might enlighten all our audience why they should tune in on January the 10th, 9 p.m. on Channel Sky Sci-Fi to watch premiere the first episode of Reginald the Vampire, and what's in store for them. Over to you, Savannah.
Okay, you guys are going to want to watch Reginald the Vampire because it is a great story about friendship, and it's quirky and amazing, and there's some really great costumes and sets to look at as well if you're on that. But I think everybody's just going to really enjoy this fun story that we worked really hard for you guys, and especially if you're a big fan of Jacob, you're going to really enjoy this.
On that note, Savannah Basley, an absolute pleasure talking to you on the airwaves this evening to premiere Reginald the Vampire, debuting on January the 10th on Channel Sky-Fi here in Ireland and the UK. Savannah plays the character Angela, the antagonist vampire in the show, the mean girls element to it. Savannah, much more friendly in person speaking to you there this evening. Savannah, basically, we wish you all the best. Hopefully it's a huge success, and there may be future seasons in the works as well. Great to see that you're fairly busy at the moment, and please God, we can speak to each other sometime again in the near future. But for the moment, Savannah Basley, take care and God bless.
Thank you.